Hello, everyone, and welcome to Live with the Pricing Lady. I am Janine Liston, your hostess. Welcome to the show. This show is all about helping small business owners get better at pricing. My mission is to help you charge confidently for the value that you deliver so you can build more sustainably profitable businesses. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to this week's guest, Miss Sheila Balgobin. Hi, Sheila.
Hello, Janine, and hello, everyone. I'm really glad to be here. This has been very thought-provoking for me, this invitation.
Excellent. Well, we can't wait to hear more about that. On today's show, we're going to be talking about how you're part of the equation when it comes to making better pricing decisions. Now, before we get into that topic, I'd like to ask Sheila to introduce herself.
Well, I am known as the Dream Decipherer, and that was a part of the journey and part of my business, which brought me back to myself, but that's another story. Uh, as you might have guessed, I'm not originally from around these parts. I'm originally from New York City, but I have been living in London for the last 23 years.
Wow.
Something like that. And yes, I still sound like a New Yorker. People are always surprised by that. Don't know why. But I'm a sleep and dream coach, and I work with people who obviously having sleep issues, but my specialty is actually interpreting dreams, and that's my gift. And it was coming back to myself and acknowledging that gift that actually helps me to be my real self and to build a business.
Mm-hmm. Wow, fantastic. Dream decoding, dream deciphering. That's amazing. I'm sure that you have some very interesting experiences and stories in that area for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Sheila, I'm curious, how long has it been since you first started your own business and what prompted you to do that?
Well, I officially started the business that I do now in 2017 after a very transformative retreat that I went on in Marrakesh. And that shifted things so much that even before I left Marrakesh, things in my life had already started to change. But that was the official start of the business as an entity. But I had been working for myself for quite some time as a self-employed therapist in
Okay.
any case. And that I had done for over 25 years. But I finally decided that it was time for me to fly the nest and go solo and really do the things that were in my heart to do. So that started me on the journey that led to becoming the Dream Decipherer eventually.
Okay. Wow, interesting. And when it came to deciding how to price yourself, what was that journey like for you?
Oh, I'm still on that journey, actually.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, but what I realized several years ago that I had some issues, lingering issues, long-term issues around money. And after this quite amazing session with a fellow therapist and who's since become a very good friend, I realized that there was this inner 5-year-old who had developed this message on ages ago. I'm not going to even say how many years ago. That not that I'm ashamed, but it's not important.
Not relevant.
Yeah, it's not relevant. But this inner 5-year-old was saying money was stupid and never lets me have anything.
Wow.
And that message kicked my financial butt for most of my life, no matter how much money I made.
That's right. Yeah. It's amazing how that happens, right?
And, so I had to make peace with that inner 5-year-old, but she's on board now. So, she knows that when she behaves, we can do nice things like go play with the flowers. That's what I do on holidays. I make flower essences. So she likes that, and chocolate cake. So she knows that when she behaves, she gets those things. So she's on board now. But
Right.
but for many, many years, and I didn't know this. I didn't know it. It wasn't until we had brought this out in this process I call NLP on steroids, or EFT on steroids. It was an amazing experience. But I didn't know that there was this inner 5-year-old who was raging with regard to money. So it's that inner process actually started to once I kind of got that sorted out, the outer process in the terms of what I was worth, how much to charge. I mean, I created a course during the first lockdown and in response to lockdown, actually. And one of the things that I did, it was the pricing. I wasn't quite sure, but I put a price on it that I thought was fair. But then as I started to meet other mentors and coaches and nice people like you, I started to realize, holy crap, I have not done this adequately, because, it's like, yeah, I went to an Ivy League school. I went to got my master's degrees. I went to trained as a therapist in various therapies. That all had a cost. And it's not about recuperating the cost. I paid off my student loan years ago, but it's about value. And assigning myself a value that is not only incorporates my business costs and overheads. I mean, I was a banker, so I mean, I know about that stuff. But understanding that I was part of the equation myself. It wasn't about just paying bills and maybe having some money left over for vacation and putting in my pension and blah, 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 blah. It was about the whole person. And as a therapist, I'm about working with the whole person. So why wouldn't I do that with myself?
Yeah. That's very interesting. So there's a few things in there I'd like to dig into a little bit more deeply. So how did this show up in your pricing? Aside from the obvious that, you weren't priced where you could be, but how did you, recognize even that there was an issue or a problem there?
Well, I think what clued me in was these mentors and coaches that I was running into, and looking at the full spectrum of costs, the costs I hadn't even considered, number one, but also what my time was actually worth. And not just the time that I spend actually with a client, but the time I spend preparing, the materials I create, all, the packages I put together, the time I have to spend standing in the queue waiting to get into the post office because you can't stand all bunched up. All of those things. And so I had to be an integral part of this equation in order to be priced fairly. I don't believe in gouging my clients, but I do believe being paid what I'm worth.
Right. And I think that's a very important point to make here. And I'm going to levelingly push you a little bit here, even though that wasn't necessarily what this interview is to be about. But there's the flip side of value, which has nothing to do with cost, but what people get out of working with you. And I think that that's also an opportunity for a lot of people to grow in their pricing when they stop thinking, or when they equally spend their time considering, what is the value that this work or this product or service is actually bringing my customers? How has that played a role in your pricing?
Well, I think I need to go back to the future a bit here and talk about the years that I spent working for a local charity here in London. It was a small charity started up by a wonderful Canadian lady who has since passed on, but to deliver complementary therapies in local communities that heavily discounted to be able to be affordable to people that normally wouldn't even have access to complementary therapies. So we had acupuncturists, massage therapists, flowers, you name it, we had them.
Right.
And I was able to bag 6 years of funding from the National Lottery, which was about, at the time, some £250,000 over 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's about 50 grand a year. Yeah, I mean, we happened to be in the right place at the right time, but you know what it was just what needed to happen.
Right.
But to get to your point, it was, as I said, heavily discounted because we had funding. So local residents would pay just a pound, which at that time was about $2. But people from outside the area, from across London, outside of London, wanted to actually access the program. That's how it was, like hen's teeth.
Wow.
And, you know, we said, okay, well, we give the local residents priority, and it happened to be my patch of the woods. So I was really pleased about that. But people from outside, I said, once the locals were taken care of, if there were spaces available, but we would charge more. So you see, the pricing was in accordance to the community that I was in and what have you. But when I left working for the charity and started working for myself, I said, you know what? I can't survive on this. This is just, I mean, it was appropriate for the person I was, but it's not appropriate for the person I am. I can't live on that. And I have to be cognizant of the fact and recognize that I have to charge something that's going to allow me to live.
Well, yes, absolutely. In addition to that, that's going to allow you to be able to be there to continue serving your customers. Now, we don't think about this as much when it comes to service-based businesses always, but certainly when you think of a product-based business, a product that, you know, you might need service later on, that's a very important selling point. And I think for a lot of service providers, you know, the assumption is that if somebody has a good experience with you, that you'll be there as a resource for them later on. But quite frankly, if you're not charging the right prices, that's almost impossible.
Well, that is true. But one thing that I have as part of my ethos of it built into my business is that I give back in different ways, whether it's a volunteer or something heavily discounted. So, I walk down the street even now, 20 years after running that program nearly now, and people who were on the is there any program that I can go to? Are you still doing massage? So, I mean, you know, and I take pride in the fact that even 20 years after the fact, people still come to me or will refer people to me because my business is about caring for people.
Right.
The service that I actually deliver is almost immaterial. It's me that they have made the connection with. Right.
And at the same time, that I want to be careful here because I've had several clients over the years or people who have called me because they've been accused by people of, well, you shouldn't charge for that because that's something that people really need. And so I want to, you know, we need to be careful here that, yes, you know, there's a time and place to be charitable. There's a time and a place to offer scholarships and things like that. However, you know, you can't be there for the long haul if you don't set yourself up for, you know, some sort of success in the medium and long term. Absolutely. So there always has to be a balance in there. And when we talk about you being part of the equation and making better pricing decisions or business decisions to do that, this is a big part, in my opinion, of what we're talking about here.
Absolutely. I mean, it would never want to see that lose that relationship with the client, which keeps them coming back. Right. But by the same token, I have to strike a balance between being able to help people who are less able to afford what, and even to tell my better paying clients, it's like, listen, for every 3 treatments you have, I can offer a discount to somebody less able.
Right.
So there's a, they understand what that is about, and can participate in that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's ways of doing it, and having been in both the business world and finance as a banker for 20 years and as a therapist, I see both sides of that, and try to strike a balance between the two.
Right. And I think most people out there are to some extent trying to strike that balance. What I've seen, and probably what many people experience, is that the urge to give is in many people much stronger than it's, to me, it's almost an act of self-care when you set your business up for that success. So that urge to be fair and to think of others first, which is very admirable, it's not that goes away, but it needs to be in balance. Yeah.
Well, everything in life needs to be in balance. So, I mean, not just our finances or our businesses, but it's true. But coming back to my original point about inner balance, when you are in a state of inner balance, then that just radiates outward and flows into every other part of your life. It's when we're out of kilter and we're running around like headless chickens that we start to get ourselves into trouble, because then we make bad decisions.
Yes.
And as a sleep and dream coach, I know statistically it's been proven that people who sleep poorly make poor decisions. When I think of being on Wall Street for a number of years, as I was, there was, pulling all-nighters, and, that you name it, they were taking it to stay awake and making all kinds of crazy decisions. I was even in the bank I was working at, a French bank at the time. The FBI was investigating because there was like money slithering out of the bank that shouldn't have been. And it was like under our noses. I mean, I was like, so, it's the kind of thing that you just have to be aware, and see the bigger picture. It's not all just about earning a living. It's about quality of life. And if you have inner quality in your life, then the outer quality will also show up, I believe, anyway.
Yes, very fair. So I'm going to start wrapping this up now. I have a few questions. What's the one thing that when you first went out on your own in your business, when you first decided to start building your own business, what's something that now that you didn't know then, but boy, do you wish you did?
What? Oh boy, there's a lot of things I wish I'd known back then. But I think it was that very naivete that was just like, just do it kind of thing, like Nike, just do it. And it was in making the mistakes and getting it wrong, and sometimes tearing my hair out. It's like, oh shit, it's like, what am I gonna do now? That I learned, and became creative. That's one thing about me. I love creating content, and I was creating the content of my life, and it meant that at times I had to clean house. At times I had to take charge. Other times it was to release, responsibility. And the most important thing that I learned was that never stop learning. I mean, I'm impressed when I hear experienced coaches saying that they go to coaches. So it's an ongoing process. And that's that's the journey, really.
Yeah, absolutely. So if there's one thing from our discussion that we've had today around pricing that you would like people to walk away from this episode remembering or keeping in mind, what would that be?
Put you at the center of your decision making. Stop. I mean, yes, it's nice to consider, your kids, your partner, your boss, you're this, you're that, the other, but ultimately who's in your skin is you, and you got to be happy in it.
Yep. Very good. So I hope you guys all remember that. That's very helpful advice from somebody who has, quite frankly, quite a bit of experience in her own businesses and in her own pricing journey. So Sheila, where can people reach out to you if they'd like to find out more about what you do and how you can help them?
Well, you can, if you have a specific question about sleep or have a crazy dream that's got you scratching your head, the link is there below. You can book a free session and get some tips that may be helpful to you. Simple things, natural things. But you can find me on my website there, SheilaBalgobin.com. And I'm on Facebook, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm just about everywhere.
No problem. I'll go ahead and put some of that info in the show notes in the comments so that if you want to reach out to Sheila, you can do that with just the quick click and you don't have to remember those links.
Absolutely.
All right, Sheila, thank you so much for being here with me today. Very much appreciate your time and your experience that you shared with us.
Oh, it's been wonderful. I've had a blast, actually. I've really enjoyed myself. Thank you so much for having me.
Excellent. And thank you to all of you who are watching us live and who will listen to this replay later on. I wish you great success in your business. And as always, everyone, enjoy pricing.
Bye-bye.